What do you get when you cross Calvin and Hobbes and the Terminator? Or say Paddington Bear and iRobots? Or even Murder Bots if it takes place in, say, like the upper middle class suburbs and they're furries instead of robots. That's kind of a bit of a feel that you'll get from Day Zero by C. Robert Cargill. Stay tuned.
Begin invasion in 3, 2, 1.
Greetings, invaders. My name is Scott. This is Book Invasion. Thanks for joining me, where we talk about some sci-fi fantasy horror books. Today will be Day Zero by C. Robert Cargill. Now, you may recognize Cargill from his previous book, Sea of Rust. Day Zero is meant to be a standalone prequel, so to speak. And what I had done is I haven't read Sea of Rust, so I listened to Day Zero first, and then I dove right into Sea of Rust, and it worked beautifully. So Sea of Rust came out in 2017, to a bit of a buzz, critical acclaim here and there. It's a robot dystopian story about kind of after the robot uprising had already taken place and the humans lost. And it tells the story of the robot who kind of goes through the wasteland trying to, quote unquote, survive, whatever survival is, what it means to live and be alive. But Day Zero now takes place 30 years prior to kind of the beginning of the end of that robot apocalypse. So Day Zero kicks off with a nanny bot named Pounce. And Pounce is kind of an AI robot who is meant to be a caregiver to care for Ezra, this 8-year-old boy that he's become best friends with since birth. So Ezra and Pounce kind of have this, unbreakable friendship bond. They're best friends with each other. And this all takes place kind of in this middle-class suburbs where these people can hire these nanny robots, to take care of their children, so on and so forth. So Pounce has known 8-year-old Ezra since birth. So over the last 8 years, they've kind of become best friends. And this nanny bot is kind of programmed to feed into Ezra's needs and wants and care for him. Ezra's a bit of a sensitive kid emotionally, and he's really got this strong bond with Ezra. We find that in the beginning when he hears a rumor that AI robots are going to start leaving their families, and Ezra kind of breaks down, and he doesn't want to lose Pounce. And Pounce says, "No, buddy, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here to take care of you." Like, Ezra is Pounce's world, and vice versa. And in the beginning of the story, we see kind of a start of a revolution and uprising, so to speak, where AI robots are given the chance to become free and given the opportunity to not be, quote-unquote, slaves to the humans anymore. And Pounce takes this kind of opportunity to question whether or not he wants to do that. Where would he go? What would he do if he doesn't have to take care of this boy anymore? Like, what would his life be like? And so, like Sea of Rust, we really dive into the POV of this robot, and it feels human. It feels just similar to kind of what Murderbot was. And this feels like we're getting into the AI robot's heads. He's thinking about emotions and love and hate and friendship and meaning and purpose. And one day, Pounce discovers his old box kind of in the attic, and he asks his family, "Hey, I found my old box, I can throw that away and toss it." But his family says, "No, you know what? Let's keep that box around so that we can, repackage you for another family." And then, Pounce's kind of worldview gets a little flipped on its end. Like, wait a minute, like, you mean there's going to be a time when, like Toy Story, like Andy doesn't need his toys anymore? I'm going to be stuffed in the attic? Like, yeah, Pounce realizes that he's indispensable now, and his life will come to a screeching halt when Ezra doesn't need him anymore as a nanny bot. So he discusses that kind of with these other AI nannies in the beginning, and it kind of sets the stage for this whole revolution as we follow Pounce on his journey kind of after the collapse of AI and what's happening once the robots kind of start their uprising. And then it gets pretty bad. So the theme in the book was really like an AI kind of discovering humanity, what it means to be a robot or what it means to be human, and vice versa, what it means to kind of have a friendship and be loved and feel loved, and all that kind of stuff in through a robot's eyes, which I thought was really interesting. A bit through the book, after we kind of get that Pounce and Ezra dynamic, that emotional study of AI, there's an event that happens, and then the book kind of takes a shift to this sci-fi action shoot 'em up romp where the action is flying and, you know, tactics, and a 4-foot furry teddy bear named Mr. Snuggles carrying an AR-15 and a railgun. You know, those things, it really takes a shift later in the later half of the book, which I thought was amazing and awesome. Like, it then, like, things go down and it gets really wild and awesome. And now the book goes through and it talks about things like the Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. It goes into some AI studies. There's a little bit of buzzwords, but it doesn't get crazy scientific about it. It's really kind of accessible. It stays kind of surface level with those familiar themes of AI and what can happen when we don't understand, like, ourselves, what we're inventing, when we think we're doing something for the greater good. And in fact, it kind of flips it on its own head and bites us in the ass at the end. And so I feel like Day Zero was a really cool AI story, as well as Sea of Rust. And so I felt like Day Zero was a really cool sci-fi story that it will appeal to the fans of Murderbots, absolutely. And it's a great prequel to reading Sea of Rust if you have not yet. You get all those things about what facets are, how Isaactown came to be, Sissis, and kind of these one-world intelligence things had come to be in Day Zero that come into play later in Sea of Rust. And you really get a backstory of that. You get a little bit of it in Sea of Rust. They talk about kind of the origins about it, like 30 years ago when this happened. But Day Zero really plugs right into those missing pieces, and it gives you the definitions of what happened at Isaactown using the same kind of speeches and accounts from the robots, and what happened at Isaactown, and gives you those same kind of speeches and accounts from different perspectives now. So we're, instead of Sea of Rust, we're now tracking kind of this modified hunting scavenger robot. We're shifting that now to a caregiver nanny bots with the humans, and that he's known and loved and have taken care of him. All that kind of falls out from underneath of him, and Pounce has to kind of come into his own realization of what he wants to be, whether he wants to go to the dark side and upload his consciousness to this mega intelligence, or fight that. And then it becomes, you know, robot versus robot, which is most of the story here. And it's really awesome. It's really great when you're fighting, you know, when you're having these scrappy rebels versus the Empire, so to speak. It really has that emotional dynamic, AI dynamic of those meanings, and then it also turns into like an action shoot 'em up romp with AIs blowing each other up, which is really great. So I would definitely recommend Day Zero. Check it out, and also check out Sea of Rust. Read them both together, back to back, Day Zero first and Sea of Rust, or just read them individually. But those are my thoughts on Day Zero by C. Robert Cargill. Definitely check it out. It's pretty awesome, a good AI story. And I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.